Welcome, I'm Nick. Today we're going to talk about challenging behaviors or behavior modification, especially for kids from hard places, whether that's foster kids, adopted kids, or kids who've been through traumatic stuff. If you haven't seen the first video, I highly recommend that you go back and that you go see that video right now. It's so important because that's laying the foundation and preventing behaviors from happening.
1, 2, 3.
Let's go. Robert, buddy, I'm here with Robert. Robert, it's time that we do an intervention. Buddy, do you know what an intervention is?
Yes.
Yeah, so like often if someone's like addicted to something, their friends will all gather around them and intervene, have an intervention, right? So buddy, we're here for a high five intervention. So, no, don't turn it off. Stop with the high fives. I beg you, stop with all the... All right, so dealing with challenging behaviors. First, if the behavior is not like a full-on rage, or it's not like a triggered behavior where they're just like out of it, they're out of control. If the child is not out of control especially, and this is a behavior that's either annoying or it's trying to get your attention, whatever it is, I gave a hint away. But anyway, whatever it is, always ask yourself first, what's the need behind this behavior? Are they not feeling safe? Do they need attention? Do they feel like this welling up inside of them about family stuff and need to be able to deal with that somehow? They need a release? What's going on? So critical you find out what the need is behind those behaviors, because most behaviors express a need. And you know what? If you ask what the need is and find out what the solution is, then dude, put an umbrella in your lemonade, go sit in a lawn chair somewhere. What are you doing watching this video? Like, go! What are you doing? But if sometimes that doesn't solve the issue, then here we are. Let's talk about the strategies we can employ to move forward and get through some of these behaviors. So if you're starting to see extreme or even rage-like behaviors, they're destroying stuff, they're completely out of control. Often it's the eyes. Like, there's something about the eyes, and I'm trying to imitate it right here, and I can't very well, but there's a nothingness and there's an openness to their eyes that I don't know how to explain it, but once you see it, you understand it. So I'm sure some of you watching have seen this. Some of you watching, by the way, you're the experts. Like, add stuff in the comments. Like, seriously, please, because the community needs you. Tips, tricks, things, examples that you've done that have worked, whatever, we need you in this video. I need you, because my strategies have to change all the time, just like everyone else's. Please add things to the comments. So if there's the issue with the eyes, if these things are going on, sometimes kids say it's like going black or going red. Like, they just don't have control. They're just out of it. Like, they're just totally in it, right? These are some of the kinds of behaviors we're going to address now. Not to minimize some of the other types of behaviors. And actually, I think some of the things we address here are going to help with those other behaviors as well, or at least help the way you frame and think about those behaviors and approach them. So don't tune out. Seriously, bring your lemonade back over here and you can listen in. It might be helpful for you. Here we go. I said this in the first video, but I'm saying it again. Number one priority for you and for your family is that everyone remains safe. And so the first thing to do is think, is it time to activate my safety plan? What happens during our safety plan? It's time to initiate that if your child is getting to the point where you think they might be headed for a rage. Better safe than sorry. Now, hopefully in your safety plan, every family member knows exactly what to do. This should be something you've worked on ahead of time. If that isn't the case, then you need to start it. You need to start it as soon as you can once a rage begins. And keep in mind that stuff that kids break when they're throwing rages or having extreme behaviors are not as important as you. And they're not as important as family members or even their own safety in those moments. Those are the most important things. So activate the safety plan. Don't worry as much about the stuff. You can't replace yourself. Our safety plan is pretty simple. Now, there are some specifics for specific kids in that safety plan. There are specific things that I've had approved that I'm allowed to do. That's on a child-by-child basis. Keep that in mind. It might change a little bit, but that's all me, so I know what to do. It doesn't need to be so much the rest of the family being confused about, wait, are we supposed to be up there observing? What are we supposed to be? Yeah. So mostly it's me. I activate the different parts of the plan with different kids if things are happening in certain ways. As we begin to talk about addressing really challenging behaviors, here are some strategies that we can employ to begin approaching that. This is what I do. Again, you might have a better system. I'd love to hear that. And there's probably some professionals out there who at least have parts of a better system, we'd love to hear that down below, or we'd love your book recommendations, whatever it is. This is what I do. I'm being completely and totally honest here because I haven't seen anyone lay it out this way. Maybe there's a reason for that. Take that with a grain of salt. I haven't seen anyone lay it out this way before, and I feel like it's so critical that we do that because we need to have a strategy for approaching these really challenging behaviors. Okay, so a child is beginning to well up. Like they're beginning to get overstimulated. You're starting to see some of the cues that tell you this child is beginning to act up. They might get into arguing. They might be hyper, like their engine's running too fast, we say. They might be like really hyper, things are going too fast. You might see some weird eye stuff happening, whatever it is. They're poking at people, not necessarily physically, although maybe that way too. But you're starting to see some stuff happen. These are the warning signs that your child is approaching a meltdown. Number 1, offer choices. I can see that you're beginning to get a little bothered by this right now. And I know that we don't love brushing our teeth, but would you like to brush your teeth with music instead? Or would you just like to brush your teeth the normal way? So giving them choices or saying something like, oh, I'm not going to choose snack for you tonight. I'll let you choose snack. Would you rather have this or would you rather have this? Or you know what? I know that going to school is really hard for you. Today, just this time, as a special treat, you can chew gum on the way to school or you can have a lollipop. Which would you rather do? Or you know what? I can see that you're having a hard time switching from watching TV to moving to our bedtime routine. I get it. I struggle with that too. Maybe today we could watch a little bit of a YouTube video while we eat our snack or while we brush our teeth. Which of those two things would you prefer? And they're acceptable choices to you. So choices that are not just like, do you want to put your PJs on or go to Disneyland? Oh shoot, I don't want to go to Disneyland. Like things that you don't want or can't do, don't offer those as choices. They should be simple. Oh, I know you're not excited about bedtime, but you know what? I watched the Spider-Man PJs, so you could either wear the Hulk PJs tonight or the Spider-Man PJs. Which would you prefer? So you can offer choices, and even with that last choice, even if you don't offer a choice, making it so that there's something fun to do during the process, like, oh man, I'm gonna race you to the toothbrushes, or here, let's watch a YouTube video or listen to some music or whatever while we're doing something you don't enjoy. Makes life a little easier. Now, if we're being completely honest with each other, I'm telling you, I've seen that choices do not work really well, at least in our experience, during peak seasons with kids, which we talked about in the first video. During those seasons that are especially hard for them, they don't work really well. And I know some social workers will tell you don't offer too many choices in the night. Know your kid. Know what they need. Right now, our kids need lots of choices throughout the routine to get them from point A to point B to point C to point D. I'm just telling you how it works for us. But if we don't do that, if we offer one choice, boo, it's not going to work for them. Okay, step 2. Remind the child of their charts and visual aids. So it's like, oh, I see that you're having a hard time and that you're not moving towards brushing your teeth, but remember Mr. Chicken over here on our visual chart? Look, Mr. Chicken first eats a snack and then Mr. Chicken goes and brushes his teeth. So remind them of their charts. That's what they're there for, okay? If you don't have these charts, go back, watch video 1. The charts are worth it. They really are, especially with younger children, but honestly, even with older children. Now, the older children are probably going to rip up that chart more often, mostly because you're putting it in a place where they can reach it more often than not. But so critical that you use those. I'm telling you, they've helped so much in our story. Having those visual aids, those visual schedules of what we do. Behavior charts, again, I've shared my opinion. Sometimes they stop the behavior now. They're not super helpful long term, but they might be worth it in this season so that you can get to a place of health for your family as well. So step 3, as a child begins to escalate more and more, you're going to want to try really hard to get them from their downstairs brain into their upstairs brain. You want to get them out of this fight, flight, or freeze way of being into using rational thought. And having some regulation and self-control. You want to move them up, okay? How can you do that? Well, you can do this in a couple ways. One is by asking them open-ended questions. Questions they actually have to think about, like, oh wait, you guys were studying the pyramids in school. I wonder what it would be like if our town had pyramids in it and what we would use them for. Like, that's a pretty complex question, right? Or you could say something like, wow, the sky always seems to have yellow polka dots. I wonder why that is. For some kids that works because it's a ridiculous question. They're going to be like, what? And it'll pull them into their upstairs brain a little bit because they require that to process the ridiculous question. Another way to pull kids out of that fight, flight, or freeze part of their brain into their upstairs brain is to use humor. Keep in mind, it needs to be non-threatening, not sarcastic humor. Using humor with some kids is really good at pulling them out of that. It's play, and people like play, and play gets rid of this fight, flight, or freeze. It's why some of that affection, oh, come on now, kind of stuff, like that helps. Or, yeah, but let's go run and play tag for a second, and then we'll come back. and deal with this issue. Like those kinds of things, play or humor, all of those have a real chance of pulling kids out of this fight, flight, or freeze way of thinking. In addition to these methods, just being unexpected. One parent I know, veteran foster parent, she says she doesn't know what made her think of this, but a child was raging and flipping out. She saw a penny on the ground. She reached down, picked it up, and said, here you go, a penny. And then she walked off, and the child just stood there stunned. Completely stopped the rage. Stood there stunned, had no idea how to react to it. Beautiful thing. Wonderful. Another parent, this one was like 60 years old or so, had this like 10, 11-year-old boy who was beginning to escalate in a grocery store. Like it was getting bad. And so she got down on her back, the 60-year-old woman, and started flailing her hands and legs and screaming and throwing a tantrum. I don't want to deal with bad behavior. Like totally flipping out herself in kind of a funny way in the grocery store. And the kid just completely stopped. And I'm not saying you do this, but I'm talking about doing unexpected things that catch the kids off guard. Unexpected things can move us from that fight, flight, or freeze behavior or thinking into a more rational upstairs brain kind of way of thinking, because we have to process that completely unexpected thing that just happened. Like, wait, why did they give me a penny? Like, wait, is she on the ground? What's going on? Like they have to process all of this, right? These things can be helpful, can pull kids out of a rage. I'm not going to say 100% of the time. It's not. And this is part of the tricky thing as we talk about these different strategies. Your strategies are going to have to change over time, especially as kids get used to certain things. Because sometimes kids well up so much they just want to get all of that out, and they know if you hand them a penny or do something ridiculous, you've done this enough, they know what you're doing, they refuse to accept it, they block it out. This happens. I've seen this. So here we're moving down these strategies. I'm telling you, you've got to be fluid and flexible in the way you approach these situations with kids. Okay, so these tactics, in my experience, over the long term, about 3/4 of the time don't work, the things that we've mentioned so far. However, just because they don't work today doesn't mean they're not going to work tomorrow. Strategy 5, direct your attention elsewhere. Now, you know your kid, you know what's safe. If the child is going to be completely destructive if you do this, you might want to be prepared for that. I do this, and sometimes it works. I sit on the couch and play a little video game on my phone while they're flipping out, and sometimes it stops quickly. So it keeps them from escalating to the point where they're actually raging. Sometimes this happens, this works. I'm like, Now, I've had a very tense experience where for about 25 minutes or so, I had a child who was on the verge of flipping out. And I could just feel that if I did anything, they were going to just completely lose it. So I stayed on the couch. And after about 25 minutes or so, that child did calm down. Another way to direct your attention elsewhere, I had a kid who loved to eavesdrop. I shouldn't say love to. I think it really came out of a place of not feeling secure. And so he had to know every conversation I was having when he was in the house. I kid you not. Behind my door, if it was closed, he'd be there with his ear against the door. Like if I'm on the phone, he had to know everything I said in that house. So critical. And I'm sure this comes from kids being moved from his past foster homes without any warning. He just had to know ahead of time. And so he was listening to make sure he was safe and not being moved. So here's what I did. Child is in complete rage mode, destroying his room, breaking stuff. Total rage mode. I pick up my phone and I call my mom and start talking about dinner plans. He comes, completely calms down very quickly, comes, sits right next to me, kind of cuddles up next to me, and has to listen to every word. Totally stopped the rage. And then we were able to do some calming things to help him afterwards. But that didn't work the next time. And so then I picked up the phone and called the social worker, who, thank goodness, answered. And the social worker and I had a conversation. How's your day going? Yeah. Someone's having a really hard time right now. Yeah. But my day's going good other than that. That chilled the child out because they came, sat in my lap, had to hear every word I was saying. So this is why knowing your kid and being the expert on your kid is so critical and so important. It's not that you're using these things against them, you're using them for them. They might feel like you're using them against them, but this is for them, for their health and healing. I do want to say the next time nothing worked, and so I had worked out a safety plan with a social worker and her supervisor that I could pick this child up. Now, again, I had a safety plan in place of how to do this and when to do this. Pick the child up, put him in his bedroom, close the doors, and hold them closed while that child managed to de-escalate over time, or at least enough so that I could help, right? But I had to do that, but I had to pick them up, put them in the room, hold the door closed, and not say a word. And if I said a word, that child would just start up all over again, but not say a word for 20 to 25 minutes. Was this the best thing for the child? Well, it kept him from hurting our family, which could lead to some serious consequences for him. Yeah, it probably was. It probably was the best thing for this child. As far as long-term healing, is this ideal? No, it's not ideal. Ideal is that you have a connected approach where there's no door in between you and the child. But if that child's trying to be super aggressive, it's the best thing for that child for them to be in a place where they're safe and other people are safe from them. Strategy 6, take their perspective. Oh man, I'm not feeling it tonight either. Like putting on PJs, brushing teeth, like I've been having a good time today. I don't want to stop it. We never do this, but maybe tonight, instead of a PJ shirt, we can wear our regular shirts to bed. And that way it'll be a little more fun, a little easier. It won't take as long to get ready. Just a thought. What do you think? Or maybe tonight, I won't tell anyone. I won't tell, I promise, if we do this. Maybe we can brush our teeth for 110 seconds instead of for 2 minutes. Do you want to tell Siri? Set the alarm on Siri for us for 110 seconds? Because honestly, I'm feeling it too. I don't want the normal bedtime routine. I want it to be a little faster. So let's do that. Let's set a shorter time. Cool? Empathize with them, help them feel like you get it in any way they can, and even give them a little leeway or a choice or something. Include that in there as well. None of these strategies are perfect. This one works. It does work sometimes. There you go. The other thing is, if you haven't done something different for a while, like if it's been the same routine all the time, and now hear me out, some kids need that same routine all the time, especially if you have a child somewhere on the autistic spectrum or someone who's just really insecure. They might need that same routine every night, and they might be pushing, in fact, because they want to make sure that routine is still there, because that's their safety. That is their safety. So you might want to not do this, but if you have a child that's been there with you for a while and you know you can do this, maybe mix it up a little bit. Like, you know what? Tonight we're going to do something different. Not quite our routine as normal. We're going to mix this routine up just for something different, just to mix life up and make it more joyful tonight. Like maybe we do most of it in costume together. Whatever it is, feel free to play and have fun. Play is such an important part of children's development, first of all. And if you have children who are behind in development, if they are in foster care or have experienced trauma, chances are they've been in that downstairs brain too much and they haven't fully developed as well yet as other children. They haven't caught up. So play is such a key ingredient to their health that way, but it also takes them out of that fight, flight, freeze thing and brings them into a place of safety. Because we don't play when we're terrified or when we're scared. We can't. And so being able to play with kids tells them, hey, I feel comfortable and safe enough right now to play. Why don't you come play with me? If you would add down in the comments some other strategies that you found to be successful, that would be so helpful to our community. Thank you for doing that. Again, I'm not an expert. I've just been through this a lot, and there's probably a lot of stuff that I'm forgetting that as you post it or as I think about it later, I'll be like, oh yeah, this would be really helpful for people to know. Sorry. We'll hopefully over time together grow and we'll figure something out together, figure out new strategies, new ways of addressing these problems. So in the next one, we're going to talk about consequences or what we do after a child has experienced a rage or extreme or challenging behaviors. Hang in there and we'll get to that. Thanks for watching.